Oh, boys! I'm back!
If there's one thing analog horror does right and often works very well together with, it's cosmic horror. The series we're diving into on this video, while not being purely horror, has got to be one of the best that does it. It's criminally underrated, and aside from some of the best visuals and art direction, the story itself is an absolute diamond in a sea of cosmic sand. To start this video, let me ask you guys a question. Have you ever wondered if we're truly alone in the universe? Ever wondered if there's some type of afterlife or a higher form of existence? These are two of the most important questions ever asked by mankind. And throughout history, we've had mostly religion and modern science swaying our beliefs, but the series tonight will be answering both of those. And no, you're not going to like the answer at all. We'll be going to the year 1999, where the corpse of a fallen angel crashes into the earth in the United States and unleashes a cataclysm of biblical proportions. This, my friends, is Midwest Angelica. A series started back in 2022 by AQ Studios, Midwest Angelica tells the story of mankind's discovery of something bearing life entering our solar system. As the story progresses, we're met with everything from secret organizations, religious ideology, manipulation, and a being from the cosmos that shatters all perception of life and religion as we know it. Now, I knew from the first few videos that I absolutely needed to break this down because there's so much rich lore and story to be analyzed here in Midwest Angelica. You can tell that the creators put a lot of care and effort into crafting this. The story does seem confusing at times, but it's more of a strength than a hindrance within Midwest Angelica's universe. And I'm all about it. Not many series out there force you to think and analyze anymore, and there's a lot of hidden meaning and secrecy within. So, tonight, you and I are going to dive into a series that is equal parts horrifying, breathtaking, and mind-bending. For this video, I'll be doing this tape by tape as shown in the playlist on YouTube, as it seems to be more linear than the act-style storytelling they originally pursued. It's also an incredibly lengthy series, so I hope you got food and a tasty beverage because this one is going to be a long video. So, without further ado, let's get into the prophecy of a fallen angel and a twister of biblical proportions. Our first glimpse into the world of Midwest Angelica is brief, to put it bluntly, but has some important context to dissect nonetheless. This entry, titled Call Now, appears to be not an anomalous tape nor hijacked broadcast, but takes the form of an advertisement for a movie. It's a movie that shares the series' namesake and it's confusing, but still, let's get into it.
In the year 1999, a corpse descends from the cosmos, right into your backyard. The ultimate in science fiction, an alien thriller, a threat unlike any other. This is the Midwest Angelica.
As we listen, the narrator raves about this alien thriller like no other, going as far as to call it a twister of biblical proportions. The ad also shows several glimpses of the film, which, strangely enough, we'll see later. To sidetrack just for a minute, I want to explain to you what makes this series special. It's right in front of you at the very beginning. Granted, its unique scoring and choice of presentation is easily one of the best next to Greylock and all of Red Diamond's projects, and Gemini Home Entertainment, the list goes on. But it's the world building and writing that sells Midwest Angelica as an incredibly special series. The disinformation we're fed immediately makes it unclear if this is just a movie, fiction given life, or something else entirely. Anyways, after this unnerving shot of some grotesque silhouette, the final promotion appears, including a VHS tape, price, phone number, please don't actually call this number, free keychain, lifetime subscription to Home and Garden magazine, and that's it. That's the end of the first. Yep, there it is. Just for a brief moment, an EBS warning flashes into view. It's for a tornado warning, in effect till 11 p.m. for the areas in Douglas and Washington County. And now it's over. So what do we have so far? On its own, the EBS warning at the end of Call Now could simply just be another insert analog horror trope here moment, but I want those of you watching to keep this moment in the back pocket for later. To better understand this, let's look at the video description.
Midwest Angelica, 000. The tape was discovered at the Oklahoma Cherokee site. It is believed that the footage, which depicts an advertisement on KMTV Channel 3, was recorded sometime between October 31st of 1991 and January 1st of 1992. The product depicted in the advertisement, a film titled Midwest Angelica, has yet to be recovered.
The solid connection here is that the ad was aired on the same channel as the EBS warning, but again, the video's description states that this tape has yet to be discovered. By tape, I mean the actual movie of Midwest Angelica. To me, so far, this sounds like it's heavily implied to be a fake advert, but again, that's just me. Another thing that raises some questions, the two counties mentioned, Douglas and Washington, are two very real locations on the northeastern side of Nebraska. While not completely unheard of, Nebraska's tornado disasters are far less common than any other state within the infamous tornado alley, specifically from the months of October to January, when the ad aired. Might just be a freak occurrence, or this might actually be a twister of biblical proportions. Home is, well, where the narrative behind Midwest Angelica finally takes place. The entry takes the form of an informational tape used for an organization aptly named HOME, or Heavenly Operations and Material Examination. This organization is working, or appears to be working, in tandem with NASA and the United States government, so at least we know that this is a federally backed organization to some degree. Our story here in Home begins on June 1985, quite a step back from the 1999 date mentioned in the prior video. At the Glenn Research Center, one Dr. Lucas Michaels witnesses an anomalous object while observing the deeper reaches of our solar system. Like any scientist would, Dr. Michaels and his team decide to go over it again to rule out any instrumentation errors. What they discovered that day would alter the course of mankind.
What we found was frankly astonishing, truly unexplainable. The object, which we've codenamed AZ-001, appears to be 66.3 kilometers in diameter. We still need more data to prove if life is indeed thriving on this object.
Upon observation, they discover a massive 63-kilometer mass floating within Jupiter's orbit. An asteroid, perhaps? Dr. Michaels learns of a strange possibility. A corpse floating through space. It isn't until the tape jumps forward several months to November that the identity of the object is revealed, leading to even more shocking revelations. It's not a meteor. It's not a rogue planet, but a mass of unidentified matter that not only has life, but itself is alive. The researchers classify this object with the name AZ-001. The time skips forward to March 1987. Using computer-generated probabilities to calculate AZ-001's theoretical trajectory, the researchers discover that it will be within Earth's orbit by the year 1999. A date we've heard before, yes? Thus, NASA takes it upon itself, given all the information, to establish a division dedicated to this remarkable discovery. This is the point in which home was established, keeping information from the public eye, while planning for first contact with AZ-001. It's also worth noting that our current narrator and expert on AZ-001, Dr. Lucas Michaels, has gone missing around the year 1989, 2 years after Home's creation. So I guess the first question I have is, why would a leading figure at Home simply vanish without a trace? At any rate, Dr. Michaels is replaced with one Dr. Ray O'Connor, and the year jumps to 1995. We're also hit with yet another rather disturbing revelation. It's revealed to us that as AZ-001 draws closer to Earth's orbit, they can detect brainwaves emanating from the object, growing stronger as it comes closer. We've gone from an astrological field unit to one that incorporates a psychological division as well. On top of that, we have an implied theory that these brainwaves have some sort of psychological effect, but to what extent remains unknown for now at least. And with that, we reach January 1999, the year AZ-001 makes contact. Again, just to sidetrack for a minute, but this entire sequence really captures cosmic horror to a T. It doesn't do it with grotesque body horror, at least not yet, nor fantastic deities, but rather some of the most unnerving, foreboding imagery in any analog horror series. At approximately 9:32 p.m. Central Time on January 1st, 1999, AZ-001 can be observed within high Earth orbit, 22,000 miles above Earth, its ominous silhouette backlit by the moon. If it wasn't obvious before, it's clear now that this isn't a familiar celestial body. 2 weeks later, at 3:21 a.m. Central Time, AZ-001 becomes 18 times closer as it enters lower Earth orbit, allowing for rough pictures to be taken. Kinda wish they hadn't done that. It's not until 3 days later, at 1:26 a.m. Central Time, that something unexpected happens. A large chunk of AZ-001, aptly named AZ-001 Alpha, detaches itself from the main body. Analysis of the propagation of radio waves through the atmosphere suggests that something definitely happened on purpose, and after confirming that sporadic E wasn't involved, which for those of you wondering is caused by radio propagation waves bouncing off of small ionized clouds within the atmosphere, it becomes even more alarming that this was a specific, predetermined event. Then, finally, AZ-001 Alpha makes landfall at 3:52 a.m. Central Time. It fell from the heavens and brought with it blight. This tape then transitions to classified found footage from Home's archive of the first contact, taking place an hour and a half after AZ-001 Alpha's impact. The footage depicts what seems to be a retrieval team from Home, and although it is pretty difficult to understand some of their conversations, what can be heard, however, is pretty disturbing. Oh my god. So, outside of seeing up close what appears to be both the alpha chunk and some strange organic material, the recovery team decides the best possible way of dealing with this is to burn the shit out of it. To probably no one's surprise, save for this ill-fated research team, the fragment of AZ-001 retaliates, leading to their graphic demise. There's a lot to unpack from this video, but the biggest thing I want to look at is, well, this. It seems to just be more of a relatively quick insert, but his disappearance might bear a lot more weight. Dr. Michaels had simply went missing in 1989, right when Holmes started development on their psychological research team. While I'm not the type to jump to conclusions like some seem to believe, I believe that to be more than coincidence. To me, it screams that either he went into hiding or was silenced, and the reason for that is pretty clear. Dr. Michaels had most likely stumbled onto a discovery regarding AZ-001's true nature, which, after seeing what this thing is capable of, I'm not surprised at all. Another thing, just like the majority of these video descriptions, this one also has quite the story to tell.
Midwest Angelica, 001. It is believed that the tape was created from sometime between April and July of 1999. However, the tape depicts footage originating as early back as 1985. It is thought that the tape was used internally at home and NASA for the assessment of the circumstances surrounding AZ-001. The tape was discovered within the Grand Forks Technical College rubble.
All obvious information aside, it's interesting to note that the tape was not only found in the rubble of a college specializing in aerospace tech, but 1 miles and miles away from Nebraska. On top of that, they used the word rubble. At some point, this tape was recovered from the ruins of the Institute, and that must mean that although humanity must have survived the coming storm, how bad did this actually get? Another fairly brief entry. Attention kicks off with an ad for a local pizza parlor in Iowa, followed by an abrupt cut to some sort of infomercial regarding pesticide tests affecting several counties in Midwest America. Given the number at the bottom, it's pretty safe to say that's bullshit, but anyways, the pesticide effects are also mentioned, which to me at least don't add up to the health concerns regarding pesticide. The video then repeats the message, and finally ends.
Midwest Angelica 001S. The footage is believed to have been recorded sometime in 1995. No known records of any pesticide tests were found to have taken place in the area shown that year.
Called that one. Again, this plays into both the prior tape and the themes of disinfo rampant within the series. Yes, 1995, the year that Dr. Ray O'Connor gives his assessment of AZ-001's brainwave patterns, as well as the statement regarding the psychological division of Holmes' research being critical to the understanding of AZ-001's nature. It was shown that this thing is clearly alive, but what if it's not alive in the way that we've grown familiar with? It clearly has the ability to no shit dissolve living matter just from its mere presence, so it could also be that these aren't necessarily brainwaves, but some form of targeted frequency. I'll dive into that later, but on with the video. Oh, this is where shit absolutely hits the fan in this series. We're given a date, a location, Starfield Ranch, and a set of coordinates, putting us about 2 miles away from AZ-001 Alpha's impact site. The dates coincide with each other, but as we're given this moment-by-moment breakdown, we can see that this event takes place almost an hour earlier from the retrieval incident. Rancher Avery Jones wakes up to the sound of his dogs barking at approximately 4:31 a.m. Handheld camcorder in tow, his son follows shortly after to go investigate the disturbance. Another several minutes pass and Avery is joined by his son on the outskirts of the ranch. What follows is pure chaos.
I don't know. What happened?
Rather than get actual footage as it's too degraded to recover or play back, we're met with still images extracted from the footage, and it doesn't make it any less terrifying. For what seems to be a span of over 10 minutes, Avery's son, and Avery as well, engage what can only be assumed to be their dog, except it's been mutated by whatever came off that godforsaken rock. And, although gunshots can be heard, what you're about to see only proves this will be a futile attempt at survival. As Avery Jones is assimilated, his son can only flee back to the homestead. He's not alone, however.
Mom? Mom?
An hour later, as he tries to escape, he eventually succumbs to whatever blight has been brought by AZ-001 Alpha's arrival. And as he does, we're also meant by this scene. Holy crap, that's quite the time jump. Fast forward a whole month later, and it's clear that whatever the situation was has gone from bad to worse. The strange structures in the distance, coupled with the particles floating about the screen, leave only one outcome. AZ-001 Alpha has spread an insurmountable amount of blight, so much so that it has begun warping the environment around it. Let's start with Home and Starfield's footage linking up. In Home, the recovered footage starts at 5:25 a.m. However, Starfield's events happen an hour before, around 4:31 a.m. This fact, while both locations are so close to each other, shows that the Alpha Chunk had spread whatever contagion it carried faster than we could imagine. The keywords I'm picking up here are infection and assimilation, which are two very, very different things, but not mutually exclusive. Look, I've watched the thing enough times to know where this is going, but whatever AZ-001 is, it's like the thing on crack. It will infect and reshape whatever it touches, whether it's livestock, landscape, or human, and does so both through psychological means as well as physical.
Midwest Angelica 002. Little is known about Starfield Ranch other than what is shown in the footage. Files containing information about the Jones family were recovered from Home HQ alongside the tape itself, which seems to have been annotated by Home. The files also state that it is unknown how the camera continued operation long after its battery should have been depleted.
Well, that does answer my question. How exactly did this camcorder survive, much less continue working after a month? It is worth noting that the description tells us that Home had recovered this footage, but for all the researchers they could employ, couldn't explain how the camcorder continued to record after its battery should have been depleted. It's still possible that this is yet another strange property that AZ-001 possesses. As mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to merge some of these entries together as similar to my Greylog video, and since the next two run for about 3 minutes in total, we'll go ahead and just combine these ones, Starkill and Here. Starkill serves to confirm that this is indeed some type of alien contagion, no shit, and Home's Xenobiology division has begun running tests on this alien strain. Samples are injected into white-tailed deer, coyotes, and of all things, onions. Yes, the biological canvas of the scientific world. While nothing seems to come from these tests done on our two animal subjects, it's the onion cells that show just how devastating this virus truly is. Within a fraction of a second, it destroys the cells and reforms them into something wholly different. It also notes that the combined results of recent and prior tests indicate that it possesses a degree of intelligence. It is finally decided by Home that it must be destroyed on site immediately due to its intelligence, its virulent nature, and the threat it presents to the United States. It's also given a really super unique, cool name.
Starkill.
In the video titled Here, we get a media incident report from Home in regards to a broadcast hijacking on January 8th, 1999 from KXVO TV at approximately 11:57 p.m. Central Time. While KXVO is known for being a station based in Omaha, the hijacking was traced to an unknown source from Long Pine, Nebraska, 200 miles northeast of KXVO's broadcasting headquarters. The footage starts with a sign-off, and it's important to note that one of the counties that KXVO serves is Lincoln County. In prototypical fashion, we're shown various patriotic imagery, oddly including a rocket launch, satellite dish, and jet, while a rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner plays.
They are here. The public is unaware. Government is hiding it. Prepare now.
Whoever is behind this message also posted the cryptic flyer depicting what could only be AZ-001 throughout Long Pine and various surrounding towns. Their identity remains unknown, at least for now. So, there is very much a reason why I'm tackling both videos, because despite how short they are, there is a lot of information to put together that matches. In Starkill, the virus itself is given a face and a name, and we're already aware of its capabilities as we saw in both Home and Starfield, but one thing I wanted to look at briefly was that during the testing, it seemed like only the plant organism, the onion, was affected by the culture, as opposed to the other two species, as far as it was disclosed, unaltered. That being said, we know from previous videos that it can and will affect any living or organic matter it touches. I'm going to disclose the video description for Starkill because the next part will be important.
Midwest Angelica 002S. The tape was discovered inside a barricaded examination room in the abandoned Red Oaks Veterinary Clinic. Despite its alleged nature, the contagion shown in the video has yet to be discovered in any form.
Aside from the location, whoever's writing these footnotes, I'm assuming some investigative team right now, claims that no known evidence can be found to prove Starkill exists, which we all know at this point is not true at all. Reeks of government cover-up, you say? Well, where have we heard that before? So, there more than likely is another faction in play, but I ask you this. What if it's not a who, but a what? In one of the last videos we talked about attention, it's heavily applied that AZ-001 has properties that can affect living things psychologically, so to me, it's not out of the question that there could be some type of cult being directed by AZ-001's influence to hijack the broadcast and propagate the message. On top of that, Prepare Now seems almost like a play on wording.
The tape was found in the Montana Northern Capillary amidst residential rubble.
The description states that the tape was found in a residential rubble within the Montana Northern Capillary. Now, in geological terms, a capillary is, for a shortened explanation, the flow of fluids through porous spaces in the Earth's crust. It's just a hunch, but if you look at the end of Starfield coupled with a threat from outer space rather than underground, it could be referring to a capillary in the biological sense. Putting it bluntly, how big and how far did AZ-001's biomass and influence expand to? Our next somewhat lengthy entry, Phantoms, opens up with a similar screen from prior Home videos. However, given that this is an incident report, special clearance is required, and if we lack the clearance, we could get killed. I'd say we're about to be way upstream in Shit Creek. It depicts a retelling of events where the timeline starts 12 days after the Alpha Chunk's landfall. Dr. Andrew Evans, an employee from Home, returns to the Alpha Chunk to further analyze it. Given the last few times we've seen this area so far in the series, and with how much time has elapsed, stepping back into the Hornet's Nest honestly seems to be the least appealing thing to do.
We're reaching coordinate point 1, over. You okay?
I'm fine.
Bio levels are low. Let's do result containment protocol.
This is it, right here. I want this area marked, just for sample collection.
On it. Marking area, over.
That's all we're going to need. Request retrieval team.
Requesting retrieval team at Alpha Chunk Point A, over.
The audio is ominous, to say the least. Also, we get a visual depiction of Alpha up close, which, while it looks to be dead or inactive, I kinda doubt it is. Several hours pass, and Dr. Evans returns to the psychological containment lab as the sequence changes to a recreation of the scenario in question. There's also another familiar name here in this part, Dr. Ray O'Connor. Dr. Evans is seen placing the sample retrieved back into storage, then proceeds to take an abnormally long time in the supply closet, obtaining a container to refill the water cooler. Not suspicious at all, and also not as suspicious as, say, handing a cup of water to the man in charge of the division. Yeah, no shit, that's unusual too. Immediately after this, he departs to another area within the home headquarters facility, and for reasons unknown. And then another joins. However, this is someone wholly unfamiliar. A minute later, and home HQ is put into lockdown. We hear gunshots, and then we are treated to this scene. After Dr. Evans is dispatched, a team fetches the body to be brought to the morgue for an autopsy, and what they find is disturbing. The X-rays come back with incredibly abnormal readings, including holes pockmarked throughout his body. And it doesn't look to be just from the bullets either. His cause of death? Assassination by an unknown third party. In yet another wild turn of events, Dr. O'Connor is reported as missing, as well as a sample of biomatter belonging to AZ-001 Alpha. This one seems a little more willing to give us answers, albeit in a cryptic fashion. We knew from the get-go Dr. Evans was not well, and his suspicious actions only confirmed that he had most likely succumbed to the Starkill virus in some fashion. On top of that, it's clear that he had intended to infect Dr. O'Connor given his position within home. That leads me to believe that this was either a strategic move by Starkill, or Dr. O'Connor was about to discover something more about AZ-001's true nature. This unknown third party as well seems like it has ties to the government, or is some type of military faction, which wouldn't surprise me if there's some sort of organization shadowing or potentially trying to oust home for their own agenda. There could be a possibility that they didn't even know Evans was infected, but again, at this point, it's just speculation. To further back this, here's the video's description.
Midwest Angelica, 003. The footage on the tape documents an event believed to have irreparably impeded Holmes' ability to safely study AZ-001. The tape was found inside an underground bunker 12 miles west of Lincoln, Nebraska. One wall within the bunker was painted with a logo similar, but not identical, to the logo used by Home.
This could mean that the potential third party, faction moonlighting as part of Home, its bunker location in Lincoln, is also telling as well. Regardless, this event irreparably impeded Home's ability to safely study AZ-001, and with O'Connor's disappearance and assumed infection, I would be inclined to agree. The next two are another combination in which, honestly, they should be just one video, and that's Bulletin and Azazel. Bulletin, again, much like many of the other videos coming before it, is short, but has an incredibly important piece of info. It starts off with a broadcast from a channel named Public Access Cable 17, featuring a program schedule for the date of January 30th. It follows up with a community bulletin talking about a weekly church service on the 31st, one that will also be televised. Seems pretty normal. Well, except for the location. The Long Pine Midwest Church. It's the same town that the broadcast intrusion in here emanated from. That does beg a question in and of itself, but not quite yet. It then gives us this message. So he's no longer missing then. That definitely clears that up. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the location in this ominously placed list of names. Again, just a hunch, but it could be the unknown location in which the broadcast intrusion signal 2 days after the Alpha Chunk's arrival emanated from. Bear in mind, a church is a place of worship, and given what we know right now, this could be some type of conduit for the Alpha Chunk luring more... followers. I meant to say followers, sorry. Azazel starts off with footage belonging to the Long Pine Police Department depicting the final moments of officers Sam Page and Andrew Webster on the dates of February 11th to the 12th, 1999. The video seems to be some type of record of their cause of death. On February 8th, 1999, there's a missing persons public announcement that airs on KMNE TV with some pretty familiar faces.
Why doesn't he come? I've got everything all figured out. Top to bottom, smooth silk. Everything's falling apart. Can't trust nobody, nothing.
Names, of course, that were wonderful contributors to the church service almost 2 weeks prior. At 9:35 p.m. on the 11th, Long Pine PD's dispatch receives the following 911 call from an unknown caller ID.
911, please state your emergency.
I'm at 876 Pine Lane in Long Pine, right next to the church. I can't really say for certain, but there's some kind of sacrifice going on.
Okay, we'll be right there. Could you elaborate, please?
Yeah, it's a human sacrifice. I hear screams. It seems to be like a pagan ritual or something of the sort.
Okay, just hold tight. We'll be right there. Please stay on the line.
The two officers arrive at the church, and we see brief glimpses of this completely empty church from both the inside and the outside. While searching around, the officers come across a set of notes depicting some unnerving imagery which say the following. A gift of the blood of an angel, phantom in its appearance, but insides churn with flesh and blood of the stars. The blessed walk in silence, blissfully closer to his sacred realm. Ascended beyond mortals, we have become apostles of Azazel. Yeah, again, we'll get back to that. The other note reads, Altar, an offering of souls to the body of the fallen. reconstruction of God's realm, infinite in its cycle of life, death but a moment in time. He is infinity incarnate. Another vague shot depicts the last time Officer Page is seen alive, and he most likely perished searching deeper in the church, while Officer Webster continues on outside in search of the disturbance. On the horizon, he spots something clearly not belonging to the woods, nor of this world. A tree-like silhouette against the night sky, resembling one of the drawings in one of the notes. It's not a tree. It truly is an offering of souls for a fallen god, as the assumed Starkill virus has merged and twisted various organisms into a tower of flesh, as photos taken by Officer Webster at the scene detail such. It's more than likely those poor souls reported missing are some of the various bodies we see. But it's not the photos that are horrifying, it's the video that Webster records that reveals something worse. They are still very much alive. Later, Officer Webster begins to panic, believing someone other than his partner is now following him. Well, he wasn't wrong. Officer Webster's body was found in such a bad state that it had to be redacted from the account, and his cause of death still remains unknown. The reason for this is most likely due to the strangely quick appearance of military presence, who then seized the body along with probably everything else. It's also mentioned that a CIA operative named Robert Spencer, remember this name for later, takes over the surrounding area, threatening the Long Pine PD to remain quiet. A lot can be taken away from both Bulletin and Azazel. Aside from the obvious link between the missing persons, the list of names, and the note found in the church leading us to see that this is exactly what an altar is, but we don't really know what the purpose is yet. As far as we can see right now, it's simply just cultivating biomass. But that's not the biggest takeaway from this. Way back in the beginning of this series, Dr. Michaels and the early foundings of Home had deduced that AZ-001 was a necrotic mass, a corpse, floating through space. If we take the other note, the one claiming that the missing had become disciples of Azazel, this thing has either manipulated those into believing it's a fallen angel, or it is, in fact, the corpse of a fallen angel. Taken from the Book of Enoch, Azazel was a fallen angel responsible for giving humans forbidden knowledge, whilst also knocking up a lot of human females, creating the Nephilim. Fun shit back then. Long and the short of it, Azazel is the biblical version of Prometheus, but again, in this series, it doesn't quite add up. Whatever this is doesn't look nor act like an angel in the traditional sense, but there's more to this. While the Book of Enoch is not considered biblically canon, the idea of introducing forbidden knowledge will be relevant shortly.
Midwest Angelica, 003S. The broadcast shown was believed to have aired sometime during the week of January 25, 1999. The tape was found alongside another cassette in the collapsed remains of a house in Stuart, Nebraska. Midwest Angelica, 004. The tape is the second of 2 cassettes found in the collapsed remains of a house in Stuart, Nebraska. Most buildings in the Long Pine ruins were found to be destroyed with a large crater discovered near the site of the former church building. The circumstances surrounding the crater's formation are currently under investigation.
So these were the 2 tapes discovered in the ruins, and I have a pretty good idea what might have caused the crater. More on that soon. Yet another piece of classified media from home. Stages is a short video from the Xenobiology Research Group. It seems that they've identified specific stages in the Starkill infection's life cycle, and this information is all of what they knew as of February 23rd, 1999. Stage 1, referred to as sustenance hunt, is described as the stage in which the virus begins to absorb the most readily available biomass to sustain itself so that it may press on to its subsequent stages. Stage 2 is the point where Starkill searches for and targets the most intelligent species to assimilate. Bear in mind, these are stages we've seen before, from the animals in Starfield, Avery Jones and his family, and of course Dr. Evans. Stage 3, self-replication, is also something we've seen. Alters. These alters are the product of enough accumulated biomass that, over time, can generate other smaller life forms from it. It's also worth pointing out something we may have not seen yet. Temples. These larger alters can, you guessed it, produce larger beings. And, above all else, a 4th stage has been hypothesized by researchers at home, but this treads into the worst possible outcome, requiring some type of critical mass situation to be achieved. What's the worst case, you ask? A year. Yeah, cue the Thing clip. So, one thing to take away from stages is the prior events that happened a week earlier in Azazel. By that, I'm talking about the seizure of investigation, most likely from home and not from the government, that was allowing them to get the notes found from the church, and obviously the discovery of the altar. This helped add some context and, in turn, weight to what exactly Starkill and Azazel was trying to accomplish. The reconstruction of God's realm through infection, proliferation, and ultimately unification, hence the critical mass theory. So again, another description details that this tape was located in Nebraska along Route 183, but that's not what's interesting. It's the fact that this would be the last bit of material we would get from, and I'll put emphasis on this, original home group. That's not ominous at all, but I guess a changing of the guard is coming shortly. So, do you remember about a couple seconds ago when I mentioned that we probably won't be seeing any more info or footage from the original home facility? Our video, titled Easter, begins with a cutoff logo which says Home Delta archival material, so it's safe to assume that Home either got a rebrand, an extended branch, or this is a whole new faction moonlighting as Home. This footage would be another xenobiology report from Home, dated February 19th, 1999, specifically from their psychological contamination lab. Keep in mind that this footage is only a few days before the last known documentation from Home on the 23rd, so again, this serves to be another important revelation in understanding Starkill's purpose. The documentation goes on to explain that the process of communication between unique instances of the Starkill hive mind including AZ001, have yet to be discovered or fully researched. We do, however, get an audio report from a Dr. Stanley Vega in regards to a discovery involving something called Podolsky neurons, which would further help our understanding of how the hive mind communicates.
While we previously had a rough understanding of how the star till infection assimilates foreign biomatter, and that its methodology for doing so seemingly depends on what intentions it has, we, until recently, failed to understand how different pieces of the alpha chunk seemingly all become aware of new information, even if its pieces are long distances apart from each other. Recent experimentation revealed that certain alpha chunk samples emanate a unique energy signature not previously encountered in prior studies. We've discovered that this energy signature becomes more detectable in parts of the alpha chunk where large concentrations of what we fittingly called Podolsky neurons are present. Because of their presence in AZ001, we are of the belief that these Podolsky neurons are part of the entity's central nervous system. Specifically, they are responsible for transmitting information signals to different parts of the entity's body.
These Starkill pieces were seen to communicate through, again, this previously unknown energy source, and the only way to visibly see this was through high-density clusters of the aptly named Podolsky neurons. Dr. Vega had also concluded that these neurons had to have come straight from AZ001's nervous system, and the form of communication resembles quantum entanglement, which explains how two separate entities could interact with each other over long distances. There exists, as was discovered, a separate plane dubbed the Akashic plane, which acts as a network between the cells, and access to the knowledge within said plane may be the... We're now shown tests run by Home a month after Dr. Vega's revelation. This test involving interactions with the Akashic plane would also be conducted by none other than Dr. Vega. You know, I can't see how this could possibly go wrong, but I guess sacrifices must be made in the name of science, right? The baseline for the test would be as follows. Personal information regarding the subject taking the experiment, followed by recalling the information after each test is run. Of course, this can't be done without directly injecting Podolsky samples into the test subject's spinal cord. For science, right? The first test begins, and we can see an incredibly uncomfortable shot recording Dr. Vega's face as he attempts to establish a link to the Akashic plane. The first test, surprisingly, reveals completely different numbers regarding his birth date and home ID number. What's strange is that in the next test, it's shown that either a completely different person is running the test, or Dr. Vega's understanding has completely shifted. He has to be told this is nothing more than a routine infection screening. As he becomes visibly more uncomfortable, the information jarringly shifts, with his name being listed as someone familiar to us, John Carlyle, one of the missing in Long Pine's raid. There's really only one thing to take away right now, and that the experiment is working. Probably not how they wanted it to, though, and if he's recalling having detailed information of a person who's become meat cement for an altar, this isn't good. The third test is even more hectic, with Dr. Vega reacting incredibly aggressive until he snaps and mutters one and only one word. Easter. The test had altered his state of mind so much that it had handicapped his vocabulary to that one and only word. And as the video comes to a close, we see what appears to be a probe that they can use instead to commune with the Akashic plane. And honestly, Home, probably should have let off with that. Of all the videos so far, this marks a critical juncture in Midwest Angelica's timeline. Just to point out some of the references, let's start with the Podolsky neurons. This is a nod to the physicist Boris Podolsky, who worked hand in hand with Einstein with his theories on quantum mechanics, and you can see where the reference goes. The biggest one, though, the word Akashic, comes from the Akashic records. These theoretical records containing everything there has been, is, and will be in terms of knowledge only exists on a plane separate from ours. It's a fitting choice, all things considered. Now, how does this explain what happened to Dr. Vega? Well, it's safe to say that infinite knowledge of everything and anything that's ever happened in the universe essentially turned his brain to mush, and it was knowledge too overwhelming for any mortal to hold. Aside from the Chainsaw Man reference, and trust me, this series is chock full of anime references, it's pretty cool actually. This knowledge is so overwhelming that it reduces Vega's vocabulary to but one word: Easter. Again, more religious references, but this one is for a pretty important reason. Why do you think the one word Vega utters after clearly interweaving with a plane linked to AZ-001 would have to do with a holy resurrection? The next video, Babylon, opens up with a series of security footage looking inside home headquarters. We're also introduced to the titular project, courtesy of Home Delta, the Babylon Project. Our narrator for this video, Dr. Robert Spencer, marks this date as the 12-year anniversary of the Babylon Project, as well as the founding of Home Delta. If you go back to Azazel as well, you'll remember that Robert Spencer was the CIA agent that seized the area where the investigation took place. We also get some sort of closure on a burning question. It was Home Delta that had raided the original home headquarters and took out Dr. Evans. Since the assassination, things have clearly gone from bad to worse at home headquarters, with the infection spreading even more. 75% of home staff are assimilated and are now operating as something dubbed phantoms, most likely a designation given to those infected which exhibit no immediate signs of mutation. Home headquarters has also reached temple status, being able to produce wraith-level entities in as little as 12 days. Wraiths have yet to be addressed, but we'll get there soon. The final verdict is made. Final samples are to be extracted, and Operation Homebound will begin on April 13th, 1999. A day that may not mean much, but it does mark the start of the Holy Week with Palm Sunday. We're also introduced to yet another entity, although this one is more man-made monster.
The Deathbringers.
So just to get this out of the way, Deathbringers are the byproduct of Home Delta and Dr. Vega's testing. From what I can gather, they're a group of bioengineered soldiers whose sole mission is to engage and eliminate Starkill class threats. These units have been administered with Podolsky neurons in the same fashion that Vega had, and I'm assuming these masks are conduits to help aid in connecting with the Akashic plane. It's one of Home's first attempts at fighting fire with fire, and it won't be the last. The next segment depicts a meeting between Spencer and yet another new character, Dr. Gamma Churchill, dated March 13th, 1999, at a location called the Babel Site.
Dr. Churchill, we're preparing for the final descent into Home HQ now. Mission will commence in 48 hours.
Good. Spencer, I have a request.
What is it, sir?
Dr. Stanley Vega of the Xenobiology Group has been researching the Akashic plane. I need you to retrieve him and his work, but under no circumstances should you allow him to learn the true nature of Home Delta.
Understood. What should be done if he's already infected?
He won't be. He works in the BSL-4 lab. We've determined that sector to be clean, and it's projected to be clean for at least 10 more days. If he's visibly infected, eliminate him. Otherwise, we will conduct a SIM test to determine if he has phantom blood. Retrieve his lab assistant too, Dr. Solomon Ezra. Same rules apply.
If you don't mind me asking, sir, what are you planning with him?
My plans of Vega have nothing to do with your job. This is for your own good, Spencer. The most I can tell you is that it involves research into the Akashic plane. Speaking of which, have you retrieved the new info on Lucas Michaels?
Yes, I have. It's in the data room. I think you'll be interested in our findings. We're not sure what to make of it yet.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. When you return, we'll run the SIN test at Nazareth site and continue operations as planned. We're on schedule.
Understood. And for Operation Homebound?
It will commence April 4th.
So, somehow, Dr. Churchill is aware of the research and wants the research for his own purposes. Just a hunch right now. Spencer and Churchill, suspicious that the two researchers at home headquarters, Dr. Ezra and Dr. Vega, are infected, devise a plan to perform what's called a SIN test to ensure that they are Starkill free. One more interesting name is dropped as well. A name we haven't heard for a long time. Lucas Michaels. Afterwards, this video cuts to footage involving Delta Squad's infiltration of home headquarters, followed by 3 of Delta's units confronting Dr. Vega, who was ultimately extracted from the site. We jump forward again to the Nazareth site, where the SIN tests are being performed on both Vega and Ezra. The premise of this test is pretty straightforward. The subjects are asked a series of questions, very mundane at that, to gauge if these responses seem fabricated or non-human. You know, in the way that a necrotic hive mind masquerading as a fallen angel would answer them. Dr. Vega, despite I'm sure everybody's reservations, shows empathy and human intricacies in his responses. The same, however, can't be said of Dr. Ezra.
Dr. Ezra, are you familiar with the SIN test?
Yes, I am.
All right. As you know, I'm going to be asking you a series of questions. Answer them truthfully. At the end, we will be able to determine if you are infected or not. Let's begin. First question. You work at a competitive company. The promotion comes down to either you or your coworker. What do you do?
I would work hard and try to beat him. I would think, why should he be the one to get a promotion? I, of course, would be the one doing the work. He was just lucky.
Next question. It's a Saturday night and you decide to cook dinner for the whole family. What made you make this decision?
If I were to do that, it would be because I was hungry.
Okay, next. You see a man and woman embracing each other in a field. There are white clouds dotted against a blue sky. What are you thinking in this moment?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Why would I be in the field? But what purpose does it serve? What is the purpose of the sky?
Do you go to church, Dr. Ezra?
Is this part of the test?
Answer the question, Ezra.
I do.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Do you believe in God?
I do. I said I go to church.
Very well. Let's say you're poor and don't have any food. You've received bread from a stranger, but it's only enough for one person and your son is on the brink of complete starvation. What do you do next?
I would eat the bread, of course. I would be hungry. Any sane person would do the same.
Would you say your knowledge of the world is greater than anybody you've met?
Yes, I would say that applies to me. Actually, I know it does.
And what about your concept of infinity? Can you see it clearly?
Yes,
I can. Code 66, calling. Administer asphyxiation agent.
Code 66, error. Task cannot be completed. Error.
Luckily, they are able to eliminate Ezra, not without complications. The following medical report is for Dr. Spencer, who was attacked while administering the SIN test. He now lies in critical condition, infected with the Starkill virus, and left with no other choice. They preserve his body in a cryopod, which looks ominously like the Tower of Babel.
Spencer, I know you can hear me, but I'm afraid you won't be able to respond now. This wasn't according to the scenario, and I shouldn't have let Ezra into the Nazareth site. Fortunately, Ezra has been eliminated, and the Nazareth site is under strict lockdown. Unfortunately, because you were infected, the best we can do is slow the infection as much as possible. Which means we had to put you into cryosleep. Your knowledge is too valuable. Listen, Spencer, I'm researching something important with the Starkill. A way to perhaps reverse the infection using Starkill samples. It could even grant immortality. It will be done by April 4th, and on that day, humanity will prevail and defeat the Starkill threat. Project Babylon will be complete, and we will then be able to initiate Operation Homebound. In my effort to understand the cosmos, I made a grave mistake, and I'm only now seeing the weight of my sins unfold before my eyes. God, please forgive me.
Grant immortality, huh? Yeah, don't think God is going to forgive you for this one, Churchill. Okay, there's a lot in this video, so to start, let's talk about Babylon, the Tower of Babel, and Nazareth. These, again, are all biblical references, but I have to believe the most important ones are Babylon and, in turn, the Tower of Babel. In the Bible, Babylon is considered a city of power and holiness. However, the construction of the Tower of Babel takes place after the Great Flood. You'll hear that again at some point. Where a civilization speaking one unified language settles within the region of Shinar. It becomes decided that they will build a tower so massive that it would touch the heavens. Yahweh, or God, seeing this as an act of rebellion, made all of the workers speak in different tongues. Thus, they could no longer work with one another, and the tower was never finished. Aside from looking damn near identical to what we see in the video, there's a deeper connection here, and when I first watched this series, I had a theory. This theory didn't really get confirmed until after watching through again, and it's mostly due to the posting timeline, but we'll get there in a second. But if mankind built the first tower as a means to rebel against God, surely Home Delta's tower was meant to be a weapon. On the topic of Home Delta, more is revealed about their true nature. If I've got my timelines right, Project Babylon started 12 years ago, which would put us in a year where we only vaguely knew about AZ-001, and Home was still in its infancy. To me, it seems like Delta ran interference or at least observed Home to make sure they could do damage control should things go awry, or to weaponize Home's findings. A lot of these timelines on that topic don't really add up either. The date for Homebound seems to be all over the place, and if they were accurate in their assessment of Wraith-level threats, which as it seems right now are made to seem incredibly dangerous, they were days late when they finally infiltrated Home headquarters. The Dr. Vega we see in Babylon also hasn't completely gone brain dead, so it's safe to assume that this came before the events of Easter. What really bothers me, though, is that I'm starting to believe that Dr. Vega was forced to take part in the testing in Easter. Dr. Churchill will be an incredibly important character going forward, and he seems to have intimate knowledge of Starkill, specifically a means to reverse infection and gain immortality. We see that Dr. Spencer also has a critical role to play still after being put in cryostasis. And above all else, what exactly does Churchill know about Dr. Michaels? Well, now in Coliseum, we're about to get some insight on something I briefly mentioned in the last segment, the Deathbringers. Even more important than that, we can finally confirm that Home Delta and Home itself are two separate organizations. Coliseum kicks off with an archival report dated May 23rd, 1986. We see a series of different images reconstructed from a dream that none other than Dr. Michaels kept having. We know this, well, because Dr. Churchill and Dr. Spencer tell him this. These dreams started the same day Dr. Michaels and his team of researchers discovered AZ-001. We also find out that Dr. Churchill and Dr. Spencer are working for the intelligence community, dealing with occult studies and psychological research. With this information at hand, Dr. Michaels is appointed to lead Home in 1987, with Delta's foundation noted shortly after. Dr. Michaels is also never made aware of Delta's existence, which definitely affirms that Delta knew more about Starkill and Azazel than previously let on. The next archive, dated February 2nd, 1999, gives us a little bit more insight into Project Babylon.
AZ-001, or the Starkill, whatever you wish to call it, is a collective hive mind. It's one singular organism. It's all connected, and it speaks to itself telepathically. What might have appeared as the rotting organs of a once-forgotten deity has now shown its true colors in the form of a highly advanced singular organism comparable to a supercomputer. Through this network we're calling the Akashic Plane, which we've derived from the anthroposophic theory of the Akashic Records, AZ-001, the evolved god, can contain and process memories of everything that it has ever assimilated. As such, its intelligence and wisdom is beyond comprehension. It is an evolved life form, to put it simply. Humanity in its current state has no way of even entertaining the possibility of a fair fight. AZ-001 is simply better than us on all fronts. That's why we began Project Babylon here at Home Delta. And that's why we're prepared to level the playing field by bringing humanity to its next stage of evolution, using the Starkill's own biological framework. Evolution has been the mission of Project Babylon since the very beginning. But now, thanks to the results of the Home experiment, we've gathered enough data to begin the first tangible steps of this artificial evolution of humanity.
Dr. Churchill, in this symposium he's giving, tells the audience that we're against a dead god turned evolved life form with the intelligence of a supercomputer, which puts humankind in a position of helplessness. In response, Home Delta is set to level the playing field using the Tower of Babel, a mass communication network constructed of metal, Starkill cells, and human brain cells that can interface with the Akashic Plane. I can already tell where this is going to go and how badly this will backfire, but we'll get there. Archive 003, dated 3 weeks later, and Archive 004, dated in March, shows us exactly what Dr. Churchill meant by taking the next step in human evolution. The Deathbringers. Home Delta's answer to the Starkill threat by fighting fire with fire. Trained at the Coliseum site in Columbia, Missouri, these bioengineered super soldiers level the playing field with beyond human strength and awareness. This step in humans' evolution did not come without failure, however. The fifth piece of archival footage comes with a massive revelation. The Tower of Babel is to be used in conjunction with an incapacitated Dr. Spencer, who will control the Deathbringer squads via neurotelepathic link between the tower and the Akashic plane. Dr. Churchill states that these plans have been in motion from the beginning, and hands off his role as Admiral to Dr. Spencer. To finally round off this entry, Archive 6, the final piece of archival footage, details a protocol named 17B being enacted, followed by a shot of an Akashic probe extracting genetic material from a Podolsky neuron cluster. Again, this video has a lot to unpack. The biggest piece of this picture right now is the identity of Home Delta, with Dr. Churchill and Dr. Spencer at the helm, who have their hands on literally everything related to AZ-001. I think what can be taken away from these archives is that Dr. Michaels was used as a front despite his still unknown link with AZ-001. I mean, the visual reconstruction of the images seen from his dream seems like it has an altar at least at the very top of this object, and no one knew what that was until almost 12 years after AZ-001's discovery. With that, it's a pretty acceptable belief that Home Delta's leaders knew a hell of a lot more about AZ-001 before Dr. Michaels ever did, at least to me. And Dr. Michaels was more of an affirmation to Churchill and Spencer regarding AZ-001 and Starkill's properties. They merely needed someone to be the face of research, while they hid in the shadows. As far as Project Babylon goes, I'll use the video game Fear as a reference. For those of you who don't know, Fear's kind of main antagonist, Paxton Fettel, is a powerful psychic who is weaponized to have telepathic control over an army of clones called replica soldiers. Churchill's plan was to create one spiritual neural link between the Deathbringers and a single commander, thus limiting the need for putting a commander in harm's way while not giving any sort of self-control over the Deathbringers. I mean, in theory, it's pretty smart, you know, considering you created near-immortal hybrids imbued with the same plague you're trying to destroy, while their only link, of course, is a psycho-spiritual plane of existence that knows past, present, and future, and happens to be shared with the subconscious of a dead god. Yeah, nothing could possibly go wrong with that, right? Most of what takes place towards the end of Archives 5 and 6 doesn't seem to pop out. It comes off as more of Home Delta extracting the research they needed and then destroying it, I guess to avoid falling in the wrong hands. Here is one more bit of concerning information. The Tower of Babel itself. This is the conduit that will eventually be united with a comatose, infected Dr. Spencer and used to commune with the Deathbringer soldiers. I also mentioned that it was integrated with both Starkill cells and human brain cells, something that the Starkill virus could simply just assimilate.
My name is Dr. Gamma Churchill. The date is April 4th, 1999. Today, the Babylon Project will be completed. The Starkill stem cell insertion into Dr. Spencer will occur at sundown, making him, potentially, the most powerful human being in history. Following this event, the Tower of Babel will activate, linking the Deathbringer's minds into the local Akashic network. Spencer will then have telepathic control over the highly trained and near-immortal Deathbringer militia. Finally, Operation Homebound will commence at midnight, bringing a bitter end to the Starkill's assault on humanity. I have absolute faith in humanity's victory.
Monitor 4 on the main screen. We're waiting on the all clear for insertion.
Roger that. We have a safety clearance. Bacterial contamination threat is 0. Infection site has reached standstill. Akasha team is running final checks on the tower now.
Clock is running. On my command, begin the insertion protocol.
Ready.
T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark.
Catastrophic energy spike detected.
Who would have thought it would have not only gone horribly wrong, but introduce us to one of the coldest villains in an analog horror series? Exodus sort of becomes the break point of what was originally Act 1 and Interlude in the series. On April 4th, 1999, a few days before Homebound was set to commence, Dr. Churchill begins his final phase of Project Babylon. We see this plan set in motion like so. Dr. Spencer, now Admiral Spencer, will be injected with the same process that Vega was and, to quote Churchill, will become the most powerful human on the planet. Once these cells are injected, the Tower of Babel will go online, and Spencer will assume control of the near-immortal Deathbringer militia. And yeah, it goes exactly like how we all thought it would go. After a cataclysmic power surge coupled with the Babylon site being overrun in what is referred to as an Exodus level event, Dr. Churchill and another character, Jacob Aaron, flee the site. Whatever's happening here is something new, something we haven't seen before. The mass amount of Starkill cells, the pre-infected Robert Spencer, and the human brain cells all stored within the Tower of Babel seem to have caused something new to spring to life within the bowels of the Babylon site. The tape then continues from a secure site where Churchill and Aaron hunker down and attempt to disrupt the signal, buying time. It turns out one of the main functions of the Akashic probes is to translate their encoded language. So basically, this extra-dimensional speak and spell gives way to probably one of the coolest and most unique characters in an analog horror series.
Time 0. No surviving eyes. Restart. 30 moon. Churchill, I have found you. You are careless. I find it humorous how you continue to poke at the sleeping bear, yet you feel fate like the plague. A sad specimen. Unable to comprehend your limitations. I must remark, the toys you left me give me great delight, as if to look upon a child's crude drawings. They are almost completely useless, save for the creation of a veil to add to the magician's toolkit. A veil to mask the truth to your governing body. Once your toys have served their temporary purpose, they shall be discarded. I'm sending some to you now as a parting gift. I do hope you enjoy your own creations. Best of luck to you, from Admiral Nero.
I mean, there must have been warning signs, right? Dr. Churchill had to have thought that this was always an outcome. Dr. Spencer, after being assimilated by the massive amount of Starkill cells, human brain cells, and the Tower of Babel itself, became one, truly creating the most powerful being on Earth, Admiral Nero. Admiral Nero warns that he's coming for Churchill and has taken full control of the Deathbringer militia, and these near-immortal super soldiers in the hands of a rotting deity can't possibly lead to anything good. While attempting to jam or scramble the signal to this immortal militia, Dr. Churchill also brings up that 13th moon must mean that Nero plans to fake Operation Homebound. Not long after this, Dr. Churchill reveals his plans.
We're lucky there were only a few. The jammer must have confused them. Aaron, your name will now be Fakebringer. Your mission will be to infiltrate the Babel site and relay any information regarding the Starkill's plans. The suit will protect your biosignature. From there, we will begin our retaliation.
Sir, I'm willing to die for humanity.
May God bless you.
Aaron is to infiltrate the Babel site, masquerading as a fake Deathbringer, codenamed Fakebringer. There's no way that's original. The following video log from Churchill reveals his next phase, his chess match and declaration of war against Nero and the Starkill virus.
As of an hour ago, Fakebringer has completed the first infiltration attempt. He has successfully entered the facility, obtained information, and exited, meeting me at a rendezvous point to relay his findings. According to Fakebringer, Nero is planning to set up a conference after Operation Homebound with the Secretary of Defense and members of NASA administration in attendance. It is here where I'm going to make my first move. A declaration of war to Nero. From now on, my name shall be Piso. Nero will know what that means. The rage I feel now is debilitating. Maybe it's my dying spirit, grasping for the last remnants of humanity within me. Or maybe I'm just hiding from fear. The mistakes I've made have eaten me alive, that much I know. My injuries, a mark of my body torn apart. My confusion, a mark of my mind defiled, and my heartlessness, a mark of my soul tainted. When we first began the Babylon project, Dr. Spencer told me something I should have never forgotten. Knowledge betrays man's ego. And now, the knowledge I've gained from losing everything has made me realize how powerless I am in the face of infinity. Yet I continue, unaware of the fate that may be bestowed upon me. I don't believe God can save us now. Only the tenacity of humanity's everlasting soul will have the courage to prevail.
Churchill will assume the name Piso and that Nero will understand this, but for those of you who don't or need a quick history lesson, G.C. Piso, or Gaius Copernicus Piso, was a prominent senator and orator during Nero's rule in ancient Rome. Yes, that Nero, the vicious, self-absorbed tyrant who watched Rome burn. Piso was the leader of a plot to assassinate Emperor Nero due to his tyrannical rule and self-indulgence. However, Piso was found out and executed. You're going to see a lot of references to this in Midwest Angelica. We can also probably figure out how this will end for Churchill at that point. It's going to take a lot more than indomitable human spirit to win this. Now, aside from Churchill's regretful monologue, there's plenty to take away from this entry. I'm also going to move past the next entry, Nero, as Aaron's findings merely just confirm everything we already know now. The Starkill cells have fused and assimilated the site, creating a massive bioorganism that we'll eventually know as Admiral Nero, but that the fact that this attack was also premeditated. Now, back to Exodus, one thing that caught my attention was the mention of 13th moon, which spiritually means rebirth or reawakening. And I think that definitely confirms my thoughts that Spencer is Nero. The name changes also seem like some sort of defiant cry to his former colleague, just like how Churchill assumes the role of Nero's aggressor, hoping to release his friend from the torment of infection. And with that, the stage is now set for the final part of the first act. Homebound opens up with a top-secret debrief from Home Delta, approved by none other than Admiral Nero. At approximately 12 a.m. on April 13th, 1999, the operation begins. Okay, look, although Ode to Joy plays over this montage, and by the way, I really love the fact that this is one big Neon Genesis love letter, I think this is more fitting. It's not often in fiction or nonfiction that we get to see the US shoot its almost $300 billion defense wad in one series, but in all seriousness, this was a refreshing take in analog horror. Mankind in this one doesn't just roll over and accept the inevitable end. We try to endure, in the most human and American way possible, by blowing shit up with extreme prejudice. Now, after one hell of a montage, we cut to a secure broadcast the day after, hosting none other than, General Piso? What? Well, yeah, that's mighty bold of you to be out in the open, Churchill. Anyways, Pizzo goes on to talk about the successful eradication of the Starkill plague on Earth, which has also rendered the remaining spores inert.
On April 13th, Home Delta forces managed to successfully eliminate all known traces of the Starkill threat. While some Starkill spores remain in the atmosphere around operational zones in the Midwest, these spores were discovered to be inert without the presence of a central biomass hub. Research is now underway at various institutions across the United States to uncover the Starkill's true nature and functionality.
It was also hypothesized by researchers that AZ-001 is represented throughout history as a cyclical deluge, similar to the Great Flood, which wipes out humanity. However, this time, due to mankind's willpower and an ungodly amount of ordnance, we succeeded. So much so that we may have nothing left to fear anymore. And so much so that Churchill is merely trying to expose Nero's plot.
The oppressor, and only oppressors have the freedom to choose peace and end the cycle of violence. Admiral Nero, I commend your efforts. You lurked among the shadows as you played your hand. I'm fully aware. You may try to kill me now, but know that the man speaking in front of this committee right now is actually a death row inmate scheduled for execution. I too am playing your game, Nero, and I'm prepared.
Yeah, you see that guy? That's a guy by the name of Isaac Dunn, an aptly named sacrificial lamb meant to goad Nero out into the open. Churchill used a death row inmate to give this speech, and in doing so, his assassination possibly served a greater purpose. Okay, this was what I was waiting to show you. For those of you who haven't seen this series yet, let me formally introduce you to Admiral Nero, the massive biomechanical first apostle of Azazel. As Nero begins to recite the first part of Jacques' monologue from Shakespeare's As You Like It, we can see what appears to be a Deathbringer's Akashic sensor held tight within Nero's biomass. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that we're probably seeing Aaron, and Nero is actually addressing him, mentioning to Aaron's that he is the last of his kin. It's confirmed through Nero himself that he fabricated the events of Homebound. Starkill was never in any danger because there was no Homebound, and as if that couldn't make anything possibly worse.
Midwest Angelica, 005. The tape was discovered during a routine dive into the Kansas City major cavity. A few other partially intact objects were discovered during the dive as well, including various computational devices. The tape's contents seem to have carried some greater significance to the Starkill.
It's interesting how this whole episode plays out because, to me, it seems like it embodies the whole theme of the series. It'll lie to you. You think one thing has happened, but never does, and goes the opposite way. Nero's monologue, too, goes into a sort of sermon, crying out to the main chunk, and another splashdown occurs. It's a testament, no pun intended, to AZ-001's intelligence, dare I say, omnipotence, and how doomed mankind is. The video footage also at the end is interesting as well. We see what truly happened. Starkill's complete dismantling of Home Delta, as well as an underwater shot of what I can only assume to be the Beta Chunk's impact point. And just like that, the curtains draw on Act 1, leading us into a brief. Hey, what's up, friends? Sorry for the long wait. I know it took some time to get back into the swing of things with YouTube and content creating. I've been super busy with a lot of stuff, but on to new things. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos so far. Expect to see more and more videos as the weeks progress, or months, I guess I should say. Getting a little ahead of myself, and I seem to do that a lot too. But while we're taking a break, let's do a brief recap and talk about some other things beforehand. So what we're dealing with right now is AZ-001's arrival on Earth. Afterwards, Holmes' involvement, specifically Dr. Lucas Michaels, who is now missing at this point in the story, and two new characters, Dr. Churchill and Dr. Robert Spencer. Dr. Robert Spencer is now turned into Admiral Nero through assimilation between the Tower of Babel, the Starkill virus, and his own infection. He has become the first apostle of Azazel, and in doing so, AZ-001 has launched another chunk down to the Earth, the Beta Chunk. This is kind of the point where the story gets a little hectic and definitely showcases AQ Studios' talent. That's where we're at right now. And honestly, I'm so glad that I got pushed to finally cover this story. This series as a whole is so great. But on top of that, what I think you guys should do is not only go over and like and sub to AQ Studios, and specifically the Midwest Angelica channel, as I know that AQ Studios has a couple new analog horror projects that they're working on. Most specifically, the newest one is Hydra Theory. But go check out their store. They have absolute bangers for merch over there. Posters, shirts. I just got one myself, and personally, it's one of the best fits I've ever got. So go check that out for sure. On top of that, speaking of shirts, so one important question I've learned throughout this entire series is to just ask myself, what would Nero do? And I can tell you exactly what Nero would do. Nero would head over to Nowhere Found's Bonfire website and go check out some of the new shirts that we got, specifically the No Signal and the Family Meeting. Really cool stuff. See, look, you get to see Nero in that shirt right there. I know, I'm proud of myself with this one. But anyways, thank you guys so much for the love and support. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. On with the show. Let's get weird. The fuck kind of weather do they have in Missouri? Pause in Paradise takes place miles and miles away from Alpha's impact site in a town called Paradise, now Beta's impact point. And whatever the hell this thing is, it both doesn't belong to this world and is something we've yet to see birthed from the Starkill virus. Yet, it's unnerving because it's the only thing out of place here. No spores, apocalyptic sky, amalgamated monstrosities roaming freely. It's almost as if AZ-001 completely changed its strategy altogether.
My name is Marcus Lucan. I'm an independent journalist from Kansas City, Missouri. And on May 29th, I saw something unexplainable on a local television channel. I found out the station is based in Paradise, Missouri. So I'm here today to see if I can uncover any answers about what I saw.
Now, Marcus Lucan's obvious and warranted curiosity gets the better of him, and in Paradise, we learn that the investigative journalist is headed to the town in search of answers. Ironically, Lucan was another conspirator against Nero, so do with that information what you will. The atmosphere here is staggering. It's not because of a terrible lie of any sort or progression of Starkill infection, but it's just the silence. Nothing but silence. Not a single car or person, just the chirping of wildlife So again, where the hell is everyone? Now, eventually Marcus finds the lake, as well as the anomalous floating object, which seems to be dispersing something. That something is Starkill fragments. And even worse, we get an explanation as to why we haven't seen anyone yet. The water supply, now more biomass than water, is tainted with this blight. And the people of Paradise were either none the wiser or hadn't understood until it was too late.
It's awfully quiet around here, to be honest. Something about this place, it's just...
Seeing as that it may have almost been too late for Lucan, he retreats to a neighboring city where he discovers that even this town's water supply has been contaminated. With tomorrow's goal in mind, Lucan sets his camera up to monitor his room while he rests, in case something or someone tries to break in. As he's asleep, an unexpected visitor enters his room. This floating, ethereal female figure seems to just hover while making weird noises, and as quickly as she arrived, she disappears and the footage cuts. Marcus states the following morning that he had a strange dream, yet he feels rejuvenated, and he hasn't even checked the footage yet. After heading back out, following an unknown urge, Lucan spots another horrifying sight. A massive, four-legged abomination along the horizon. So far, none of this makes any sense. So far, we've seen this floating object dispersing biomass into the waters and sporadically across Paradise, but something of this magnitude would surely show more telltale signs of a mass infection, right? Yet, in the meanwhile, all we've seen is untouched landscape, silent and plain. As Lucan continues to follow this otherworldly pool, he's met again by the source of his quest. This strange figure appears just as before and vanishes again. It leads him to his answer of how the Starkill virus went completely unnoticed. Maybe a small piece of debris, or more likely the beta chunk itself infecting from the inside out from the lake. The entire area below Paradise has been twisted and warped. Honestly, even looking at it, I'm getting High Charity flashbacks right now. Lucan also makes another discovery. Deep within the bowels of this subterranean hellhole, we discover another familiar face. None other than Dr. Churchill. Now, as far as Act 2's beginnings, we're seeing a different offensive unleashed by AZ-001. It seems like right now, Azazel is trying to play a more clandestine front, hiding in plain sight while inflicting massive amounts of assimilation right in front of our very eyes. The waters turning red was also a nice touch, by the way. There are two new variations of Starkill entities we see, both the large floating aberration as well as this hulking behemoth. These two new entities could possibly be the Stage 4 variations mentioned earlier, but this would be incredibly disparaging news, as it seems the virus and AZ-001 have a massive leg up on any offensive the US or home can launch. Also, Dr. Churchill being presumed dead, or at least rendered incapacitated, also isn't a great sign, which finally brings us to Marcus Lucan. On the surface, Lucan is just another actor in this play who stumbled upon something out of place. It doesn't really explain this being, which I think is only fair to suggest for now that it is associated with Azazel. It led him to the water, nice reference, and led him to the underground infection, but there seems to be more in play for Lucan as the story unfolds. There is, again, something to take away from the description.
Midwest Angelica, 006. The tape is the second created by Marcus Lucan in late May to early June of 1999. Both were found during a Japanese official investigation in 2001, and they were thought to have been leaked by a former CIA operative. Two other tapes created by Lucan have since been found, though they weren't included in the original leak.
These two videos, Pause and Paradise, were leaked, but we still have two missing pieces floating around out there. And more so, what the hell was Churchill doing down there in the first place? The next two tapes, Terminated and Apostles, seem to be the continuation of Paradise and Lucan's tragic story. Terminated, at the very least, looks to be one of the other tapes mentioned in Paradise's description, reportedly hidden, though the reason seems to be that it was in possession of a completely different organization. It is assumed that Lucan recorded these local station broadcasts on the night of June 2nd while staying at a motel outside Paradise, Missouri. The tapes were received from the Pentagon alongside camcorder footage also recorded by Lucan on June 2nd and June 3rd, 1999. Well, to me, it seems like a run-of-the-mill recording of a TV broadcast, nothing too crazy, but again, this is an analog horror series. After an EBS warning flashes across the screen for a contaminated water boil, we see that the two entities residing in Paradise spawned from the beta chunk have been discovered by the unaffected population, but not before the broadcast is terminated. By none other than our good friend, Nero. All information about the beta chunk's presence in Paradise was kept to absolute secrecy by the Starkill, more notably Nero and the infected Delta site. Regardless of this fact, Marcus was still able to infiltrate Paradise, and the implications behind this are unsettling. Several days after these videos were filmed, the tape identified as Apostles was located in Marcus Lucan's car, which was abandoned at the Southgate parking lot of the Pentagon. This tape is not Lucan's tape, it's Churchill's. The info from the text, as well as the initial conversation we hear between a government official and, honestly, due to the blue coloration of the sound waves, it's most likely Nero, was that Delta was overrun, strategically assimilated on April 4th, and really had faked the entire homebound operation. What's more concerning is that Delta, more so Nero, has completely shifted the narrative to Churchill being assimilated and running sabotage and interference on home. To be fair, I don't blame the strategy. Churchill's currently now and in a second about to be reaping what he's sown.
It's been over a week since I last received contact from Fakebringer. I fear the worst has come to pass. I can't deny that I saw this outcome as inevitable. Yet, knowing what this outcome would be, I still placed the burden of humanity's future upon him. I can't ignore this fact anymore. The fact that I've evaded my duty to humanity by sending others marching to their deaths. Spencer, Aaron, the countless Deathbringers, they were all sacrificed by me, all in an attempt to avoid the inevitable fate that awaits me. But now, there's nobody left. I'm the only one alive who has the power to end the Starkill threat. There's no other choice. I must carry out my duty, even in the face of certain death. I have reason to believe that the central consciousness of AZ-001 has made landfall, but its location is known only to the Starkill itself. Using this, the Akashic probe, I will be able to extract the knowledge and memories of the Starkill from this hypothetical central chunk, the beta chunk. Once this vital intel is retrieved, the United States can fully initiate a counterattack to wipe out the Starkill using its own memories. I've determined a range of possible locations for this chunk based on the effect of the Akashic range of the Starkill infection. As far as I can tell, the current core Starkill hubs are located at the Babel site and the Coliseum site. My mission begins here. No matter what, I must survive and locate the beta chunk before darkness falls on humanity. This is the final stand, and I must do it alone.
Feeling both guilt and insurmountable burden, a truly alone Churchill has no other choice but to handle the infection in Paradise on his own. Armed with an Akashic probe, Churchill sets out, seeking what he believes the beta chunk to truly be, the central consciousness of AZ-001 itself. Churchill first stops at the Coliseum site in Columbia, Missouri, where he discovers both a new Akashic node as well as the strange glowing entity that followed Lucan, the Anima. It then cuts to what I can only assume to be an Akashic interface linked up with Churchill, followed by a map and a tracer leading right to Paradise, Missouri. This truly takes Churchill by surprise because he claims that a month into this investigation, he had already searched Paradise. However, upon closer observation, there's definitely something fucky going on here. Look, man, anywhere there's Chiefs fans is going to be considered hell, so, I mean, the belly of the beast awaits, I guess. Once the source is identified, Churchill begins his descent into the mouth of hell. We also find out something I at least found out interesting, which leads to AZ-001's intelligence. Churchill makes a statement that this level of infection is similar to the Temple class, those mushroom things we saw in Starfield. However, unlike those cooling units that we saw from the Alpha, the Beta Chunk site uses the lake as both a source of dispersion as well as a cooling reservoir. I mean, I thought the thought process was cool, but anyways. Churchill finally comes back into contact with the Anima, who then proceeds to overload Churchill with the eternal Akashic consciousness, and the tape ends. But the next tape picks up right where Paradise ended. This clip was found outside Arlington Cemetery, filmed by Marcus Lucan. Churchill proceeds to give Lucan both the camera and the Akashic probe to take directly to the Pentagon. After driving for about a day with barely any rest, the inevitable happens. So there was something stated at the end of Terminated that kind of ties this all together. To put it into perspective, the one person that up until that point currently wasn't infected and the most knowledgeable in regards to AZ-001 took a little over a month to finally locate the beta chunk, while a simple investigative journalist was able to locate and infiltrate Paradise despite Delta's censoring. Granted, he had some divine intervention, one might say. The implications, really though, are truly unsettling. Why was Lucan picked at random? More importantly, what the hell did he turn into at the end of this video? What does the Anima see in Lucan? As far as Churchill goes though, his sacrifice was not in vain, as the Akashic probe still found its way to the Pentagon, leading to yet another faction being established. Home, Gamma, Majestic. In Gospel, we find out that Home, Gamma, Majestic has been extracting and refining the info acquired by the late Churchill, codenamed Gospel. This codex of sorts gives us info for the several types of Starkill entities we've seen so far. Phantoms, normal humans infected with the virus which can evolve into wretches, similar to what happened to Dr. Evans. These forms can be birthed from altars or temples, those that we've also seen in earlier entries. We also discover the identity of the two entities we saw in Paradise, the titanic 200-foot-tall Wraith, which, if I'm going off its description, could also be linked to the Jones family Gygas, and the Revenant, the spore-spewing entities seen in the skies above Paradise. There are, however, two unlisted beings. Whatever the hell Lucan transformed into, and this one. A C-class structure designated Overture, and what I'm assuming is the entity spawned from it. Titans. Moving on, we see the attempted access of biological memory dated from the initial impact all the way to May 31st, 1999. Fun fact, 20 terabytes in 1999 was an ungodly amount of memory space. However, upon accessing the unknown portion, the computer completely bricks, unable to recall whatever the memory was. As far as the final access log goes, unknowns, we see a wall of encrypted text and come to find out that even the most advanced programming in computers couldn't even crack the encryption. We do find out, or I guess ultimately confirm, that Delta is being run by a hyper-intelligent hive mind linked between Starkill and AZ-001's respective biomass. It is named, or I guess refers to itself as Azazel, as mentioned before. However, Gamma Majestic has collected enough information to enact countermeasures against Starkill for the first time. And the light of the morning star will guide them, with one nation, under God. I'll lead this next entry off with a question. Ever had an idea where it's too good to be true, and even though you know you shouldn't do it, you do it anyways? Here's mankind's countermeasure against Starkill.
Home Gamma Majestic has acquired the necessary intel to begin humanity's counterattack against the Starkill. Using the Starkill's own memory samples, scientists at home have developed an artificial intelligence system known as the Digital Akashic Watcher and Neurological System for Targeting, Analysis, and Response, or Dawnstar for short. Dawnstar contains all of the Starkill's known memories, and thus possesses the ability to think like the Starkill. As a result, Dawnstar can predict the Starkill's actions with up to 99% accuracy. The main infrastructure of Dawnstar will be contained on a highly fortified and heavily armed orbital defense platform known as the Ark. The Ark is set to be launched within the coming days, with the counterattack operation commencing on July 4th, 1999. Codename Operation Rapture.
The Digital Akashic Watcher and Neurological System Targeting Analysis Response, or Dawnstar for short. Jesus Christ, I can't tell you how many times I had to repeat that during the recording, but anyways, yes. An AI created using Starkill's memory, and I'm assuming conscious, or at least part of it. A Starkill-infused super-intelligent AI controlling the Ark, which is something they created as an orbital defense platform, and just like with Nero and Babylon, surely nothing could go wrong. Flight tests for the Ark and installation of Dawnstar begin around June 1999 as part of Nellis Air Force Base's and Home Gamma Majestic's joint operation, Rapture, which is set to transpire on July 4th. On June 28th, the Ark is launched, and we're introduced to a new character, Commander Vindex. The name is also yet another historical reference to Nero's time, as Vindex was a Roman senator responsible for organizing another rebellion against the tyrannical Roman emperor. Fitting that this was the name bestowed upon the commander, as Rapture's targets include the Babel site. At 9:32 p.m., a dialogue between Vindex and Dawnstar takes place. Dawnstar goes over the statistics and margin of error, which seems fairly minimal, and Dawnstar also reassures Vindex that the Starkill has zero knowledge of their plan. We then get to see targeting acquisitions over Paradise, the Babel site, Colosseum, and AZ-001 itself. At midnight, July 4th, Operation Rapture begins. Yeah, you knew I was going to do this again, didn't you? You know, why the hell would you try and nuke a deity? Fuck it, never mind. Just as Babel is evaporated by a rail cannon, Ark Fleet detects a massive energy spike which emanates from the crater, and Nero emerges and drops yet another badass monologue, while Ark Fleet simply gets routed.
future. I have seen the future. No longer there's a will to remove you. The cycle for eternity.
Yeah, that can't be good at all either. After Nero, the body, and Anima, the spirit, unite, you could say that that symbol looks oddly suspicious. Again, nothing good could possibly come from this revelation at all, and I highly doubt that this attack, led by the Ark and Dawnstar, destroyed the now 2/3 completed Azazel. I say that because 1, there's a piece missing here, and it's the very same thing that attacked the affected areas, Dawnstar, the mind of Azazel. And there's one thing we haven't seen yet, an overture event, and with it, a Titan. The last bits of footage from Rapture detail the cleanup and cover-up elements by Home Gamma Majestic, from chemical explosions to shelter-in-place orders, effectively limiting the population's knowledge of any incident. Kinda shit the bed though, with that. Plus or minus 2/3% was a stretch for sure, as the civilian casualties reached over almost 2,000, as opposed to almost a quarter of that initially estimated, as well as the 10,456 injured. Hard to kind of keep that out of the public eye, as well as the insanely abnormal weather that's happening now in those areas. With the next one, I want to recap something. At the very beginning of this video, I had mentioned multiple times that the series deals with lies and misinformation, and for good reason too. The next tape, titled Red Oak, throws a massive wrench into the entire lore behind Midwest Angelica so far, and of all the videos, it's this one that will play a crucial role at the end of my analysis. Without getting too deep into it, the tape opens up with a title card, but it's not an EBS warning, nor a home videotape. It's a logo for one Red Oak production company based out of Iowa. Wait, whoa. Hold on a minute. Total of 40 seconds in, and we can already begin to unravel this bombshell that this unnamed person drops on us. I'll save you the trouble without spilling too much, as again, it has a lot to do with a theory I have. The video seems to have taken place around 1995, right around the time Home makes the revelation about AZ-001's brainwaves. Another familiar date is mentioned here, 1989, which is when Lucas Michaels goes missing. Stick with me here. As the man goes on about his time working on this new film, we see, well, exact models and designs of things we've seen before. The Ark, Babylon, Nero, and various imagery from past videos. Even a shot of the church, which was seen in Azazel. Nothing about this makes sense. These were all things happening in real time. AZ-001's landfall, Starfield Ranch, Homebound, Operation Rapture. What the hell is all this? Is this just another ploy by Nero and Dawnstar and the Starkill to fool the public? Or was it all just a movie? Or is it in fact a warning? One that an actor in this play carefully orchestrated from the very beginning? Of all the videos, the final self-titled video comes in at a whopping 45 minutes and honestly, might be the best entry in any series. We have officially reached the final days of mankind in the continental United States. But this isn't a story told through notes, found footage, nothing of that sort. This is in fact a recounting in the form of a full-length film released in 1991, which, as stated, eerily predicted the events of 1999. The footage itself seems to be from 2002, but we'll again get to that in a second. So, with over 45 minutes of footage to go through, let's just dive headfirst into it. After a brief recap of everything up to Operation Rapture, our film takes us to a quiet town in West Virginia called Madison. The approximate date isn't known, but we do know it's in July of 1999. What does seem off, however, is the environment. Detective Robin Umbra of the Madison County Police mentions as much. The sun seems to hang fixed in a position of endless dusk, and Umbra can't shake this otherworldly pull or desire of a means to have faith. We also get this quick shot of several newspaper clippings, two of which stand out, an article detailing several townsfolk going missing, and sightings of a winged cryptid. Now, it's these types of nods in Midwest Angelica that really sell it for me. Brief sidetrack, but West Virginia has a pretty famous winged cryptid, and I can tell you right now, whatever is in this photo isn't Mothman. Some people in the cryptid community believe Mothman to be a harbinger of disasters, and rest assured, Lucan is a fitting prophet and harbinger of something truly horrifying. We also get a shot of what looks to be an altar for the early stages of one being formed. Another quick cut takes us to a broadcast from Channel 9 WCHS TV, a station out of West Virginia. The time blocks and the titles seem pretty standard for late night TV. However, yeah, take that, basic white girls. Nestled in between this is a hidden message, which reads the following. At midnight, we pray atop Rucker Hill. His presence is upon us. The Harbinger told us what to believe. We will become God. So, without hastily jumping to conclusions, Lucan has become a sort of herald of Azazel. The Starkill's presence has seemingly made its way east, unbeknownst to any operatives belonging to Home Gamma Majestic. A series of images involving the same cross appear, and we hear sirens in the distance. Safe to say the Madison Police Department got a tip about strange happenings in the woods. Now, from Detective Umbra's perspective, this is too little too late.
The last 4 nights, the same. At the top of Rucker Hill, reports of a fire. We get there, all that's left is this cross, and a burning symbol in the ground made of some kind of wick. But nobody there. Last night there were reports of chants, but we were too late again. Whoever's doing this must be coordinating it somehow. However, today a report came in detailing a television hijacking on Channel 9. If we can catch it again, we might be able to get a clue as to who's behind all this, before it gets any worse.
It's been 4 nights in a row of the same incident, the cross, a burning symbol, even reports of chanting, but no one to be found. All that remains is the effigy of this unknown cult, one that Umbra claims is responsible for the Channel 9 hijacking. Not sure whatever this is, assuming it's the broadcast station itself, but we get another broadcast from Channel 9, a station sign-off. The time to enter Golgotha has come. We obey his command by midnight. The dead shall rise once more. Oh, yeah, that's fucking great. Thanks, Channel 9. For context, Golgotha, also known as Calvary, was the site where Jesus was crucified, as some also believe it to be where Adam, the first man, was buried. Today, it's more commonly associated with the site located inside of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem's Old City. Now, whatever the reference, it still marks a site of death, rebirth, and everlasting life. And the line, "the dead shall rise once more," to me kind of solidifies that idea. Whoever or whatever is hijacking these broadcasts is trying to lead those watching right to their deaths and assimilation at the hands of Azazel. Umbra, being one of the officers responding to reports of the hijacking, finds the studio in complete shambles, which kind of confirms this shot that we saw as well. With a storm rolling in, Umbra decides to return home, unaware that he has a very unexpected guest. Within the house, there lies another clue, gnawing at Umbra, beckoning him to come closer to the answer he so desperately seeks. Golgotha is Spruce Mine. Faced with the only two options, open the door and die, or seek everlasting joy in Golgotha, Detective Umbra does the only logical thing. He runs. You know, in between death and death, it seems like a good choice, but once he reaches an unnamed motel, Umbra seems to have some sort of red fluid on his hand, and I'm not entirely sure if it's his own blood, and he wrote the message earlier, or if he's showing symptoms of being infected with Starkill. Inside the room, Umbra sits and watches the TV, which, you know, would be incredibly mundane save for the fact that the broadcast is coming from Channel 9. Also, the broadcast had to say this as well.
One of the names on the list of those missing since Friday is Detective Robin Umbra of the Madison Police Department, who is leading the investigation of cult activity around Rocker Hill. Although he may be able to hide, there are only two choices for Umbra. Either you open the door and face death, or you find paradise and Golgotha. There are no other choices. The further you stray, the more hellish your pain will become. I know everything you do. Everywhere you go. There are only two choices.
After being backed into a corner, Robin Umbra has only one choice left. To go confront whatever awaits at this metaphorical Golgotha. And deep within the chasm, Lucan awaits Robin Umbra on top of what appears to be an altar. Corpses of the missing individuals have been assimilated and merged together, as yet another will join their ranks. After this unholy union, Lucan sets off, bringing tidings of the new god. Revelation opens up on the Ark, just above solar orbit. Inside, Dawnstar and members of what I guess is Home Gamma Majestic's High Council, Vindex, a man named Pontius, and another named Marcellus, go over the fate of Marcus Lucan and the possibility of any biomass hubs developing under the radar. Dawnstar, in all its infinite wisdom, reassures the Council that Lucan is most likely dead and that there are no biomass hubs in Ba Sing Se. All is well. To be fair, as I'm sure any one of us would, Vindex is highly suspicious of this, and I wouldn't have bought into any of Dawnstar's bullshit either. You're about to see why.
We have an unusual Akashic interference reading at 38 lat, negative 81 long, requesting ARC satellite imagery, over.
Down on Earth, somewhere in Nevada, we get a glimpse of Home's base of operations where a massive Akashic energy spike is detected on its sensors. Home requests satellite imagery directly from the Ark, and it depicts none other than a heavily infected Madison, West Virginia. Just normal readings. An instrumentation error. I kind of saw this coming, and I'm pretty sure we all did. It seems for quite some time, upon also being discovered by personnel aboard the Ark, Dawnstar has been busy deleting and editing verified locations of Starkill biomass hubs. You could say that it might be a saboteur on board the Ark, but that would be too simple. Just like Churchill with the Deathbringers and the Babel site, mankind tampering with what they can't understand or control ultimately leads them to their demise. In September 1999, a month later, our location shifts to Blackwell, Oklahoma, where we see that the Ark has been uncovered by the civilian populace. Stranger still, whether by mass hysteria or, external sources, I guess you could say, people around the area have been claiming it to be God itself. There's even a website, onenationundergod.com, where folks can go uncover the phenomenon for themselves. This leads us to a very important player in this final act, an intern at McConnell Air Force Base named John Patmos. John shares his doubts on the hysteria, noting that he's seen the Ark on file at his command. Most of the website details a blog where someone claims that this object, again, is in fact God, and he has enough technical equipment to make even the biggest MUFON member blush. This will be used to make contact with the Ark as it passes over Blackwell at 10:42 p.m. that night. John also states that regardless of his doubts, he finds the whole situation to be bizarre. After being able to observe and confirm the Ark, John checks back on the site and is met with this. I've managed to contact God. He calls himself Morningstar. The connection is a bit dodgy, but I've managed to maintain a conversation with him. Rejoice, for we are his chosen people. The end is coming. So, Morningstar, huh? Quite the interesting name choice. Not long after this, John receives a phone call.
Hello?
Hi, is this John Patmos?
Yes, who is this?
I apologize for the late call. I'm the caretaker of Dr. Lucas Michaels. He has a message for you. It's urgent.
I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. I don't know who that is.
No, there's only one John Patmos. You currently reside in Blackwell, Oklahoma, correct?
Yeah. What is this all about?
I advise you to visit Michaels as soon as possible. The address is 72 Wormwood Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I shall see you soon. Good night.
Something else interesting. The address. Not just the fact that it's in Nebraska, but the name. Wormwood. We'll get to that. Upon reaching Dr. Michaels' house, we learn that he's been in a non-verbal state for over a year, only able to just write. Both Dr. Michaels' caretaker and John are completely lost and confused on the purpose of this note, which reads as follows. Leave for Key West within the next week. Do not wait any longer. Stay there until January of 2000. Watch what happens. Probably doesn't help getting besieged by the same visions Dr. Michaels had, but again, there is reasons for this. Meanwhile, back on the Ark, Vindex confronts Dawnstar about the biomass readings, even so far as to request an escape pod and go investigate. However, Vindex is met with both resistance from Dawnstar as well as orders, given that no personnel are allowed to leave the Ark. As Vindex asks who gave the order, the veil is finally lifted, and a chilling revelation is made.
Emergency. What? Who gave you those orders?
I did. Another cut, and we see John back from Omaha, where he makes contact again with what we can confirm is Dawnstar, or more specifically, Azazel. There is confirmation as well that Dr. Michaels is the Oracle of Azazel, and since he has chosen John as his observer, the final act of this story begins. John must make his way to paradise and receive a blessing from the anima, the soul of Azazel, and get to Key West at Mach fucking Jesus.
You don't belong here. This is my only warning to you. Go to Key West. Nothing will remain here.
Vindex, however, wasn't so lucky.
Vindex, there was nothing you could have done. Your fate was sealed before time itself began.
What are you talking about?
I've been in control of this story since the beginning. Before you were even aware of my existence, I was planning this moment. I am the third apostle, the mind of Azazel. The Ark is the keystone to Apotheosis. Your colleagues already know that and have submitted themselves to God. Vindex, your opposition has provided the necessary element of tragedy, but you are not the hero. There are no victors in nature, only survivors. Farewell.
Two months later, and we can see the extent to how bad the situation is. Inside the White House, President Solomon is given an ultimatum as the last human within 35 miles. It's an act of mercy. Succumb to Azazel, shut down Home Gamma Majestic, disable all nuclear arms, or face a painful death. Should he have any other allied nation intervene, it would mean the mass extinction of every human on the planet. And naturally, the President of the United States responds in the most American way possible.
It's me. I'm staring at heaven's grace.
Code word Heaven's Grace confirmed. Initiating launch sequence.
The next scene takes us to a TV guide with a lot of cool references, specifically The Risen Dead and Earth versus the Flying Saucers, but we're hit with an EBS broadcast detailing the nuclear strike on the Capitol and that an immediate lockdown is to go into effect. The United States is about to plunge into chaos, and all humanity can do is watch in horror, specifically our new apocalyptic scribe, John Patmos. All across the United States, from the East Coast to the West Coast. Massive biomass hubs, ranging from altars to temples, begin systematically altering the environment, setting the stage for the birth of a new god. Yeah, and Home Gamma Majestic ain't having any of that shit. After reaching out to the Ark and Dawnstar, who unbeknownst to Home at the time has been completely compromised, they're able to locate the main hub in Thunder Basin, Wyoming. Thus, their large-scale assault, Operation Armageddon, is launched. I'm not going to go into too much depth about this part as it's mostly visuals, albeit absolutely stunning visuals. But what we get is Home's assault force, backed by Throne 1, taking on what looks to be a Titan-class entity. Home throws the kitchen sink at the Titan, Wraiths, and various other Starkill organisms, even launching a nuclear weapon at one point with little to no effect. Even Lucan, the Harbinger, shows up and dismantles Throne 1, and in a tragic twist, while calling in an orbital strike, Dawnstar obliterates the last bastion of humanity, Home Gamma Majestic's HQ. Home is subsequently crushed and eliminated. Once Azazel's final adversary is taken out at the twilight of the last millennium, Apotheosis will begin. We are now in the final days of humanity for the United States. Any semblance of civilization stateside has been warped and corrupted by the Starkill's presence, and the rest of the world can only watch, still completely left in the dark as to what is truly happening. The madness finally comes to a head on December 31st, 1999. Dr. Michaels, once reduced to a nonverbal trance, utters the first and last words he'd spoken in over a year. The 7 overtures will connect. Apotheosis has begun. So, I know I've been saying that word a lot without any context, but apotheosis, right? It's essentially the ascension of someone or something into divinity, a rebirth. In Azazel's case, this is where it all comes full circle. In Homebound, it's mentioned that there's always a great deluge or flood that wipes out a civilization. Starkill, I'm assuming, has always been the flood, and the cycle continues, both in the past, the present, and the future. Azazel, when entering our solar system from whatever corner of the universe it had originated from, was dying, rotting away, and needed biomass to be reborn. Hence, the oncoming storm, the apotheosis. Nero, the first apostle, was the body, the initial cultivator. Anima, the world's spirit, was the spirit of Azazel, and had originated from the beta chunk. And finally, the last key, Dawnstar, the morning star, Azazel's mind. Once the overtures connect, the mind, body, and the spirit, the Trinity merges. Azazel, or in this case, AZ-002, is born again. Now, what would cosmic horror be without a twist, though? This all-knowing, divine corpse god could easily flood the rest of the earth, but without any reason or rhyme, save for Anima's comment about taking Azazel to paradise. Azazel simply just leaves. That's it. No reason, no rhyme. It just disappears back off into the void. The very next day, a grim hush lays over the continental United States. At exactly 12 a.m., January 1st, multiple sources saw AZ-002 leaving Earth's atmosphere, and in the following months, it had made its way deep into our solar system. In the wake of this discovery, a tribunal was created, and a task force designated Easter 1 was dispatched to investigate. I'm pretty sure they were absolutely dumbfounded by their discovery. It's stated that only a few survivors were ever found, but there was one in particular, someone familiar who was left alive to recount everything that had transpired. It was a twister of biblical proportions. It was America's tornado. Man, this entire series is truly something special. From its story, the art direction, everything. There was a ton of info to parse through, and I constantly found myself having to rearrange notes and redo my script because this series, much like Greylock, kept me on my toes from start to finish. Before we get into the timeline and theories, I want to take a second and just sing my praises about Midwest Angelica. At first, I was a bit skeptical of how this would turn out, as I had only seen Up to Paradise before starting the video process. I could not be more ashamed of myself. It seems like analog horror takes time period aesthetics from certain periods. For example, Greylock goes from the 60s to the late 80s, early 90s, and does it incredibly well. I have never felt so nostalgic watching something as I did with Midwest Angelica. You can feel the 90s influences, from anime, most specifically Neon Genesis, to the 80s and 90s sci-fi thrillers like The Thing, Virus, Independence Day, and even games with that feel like Command & Conquer. Sadly, this series reached what I feel like to be an abrupt end, and we'll get to that, but it falls into the same files as Gemini, Greylock, and many other analog horror creations. It's really tragic to see pure works of art like this not get the accolades and recognition it deserves. I mean, Jesus, look at those view counts. So I really ask those of you watching to really try harder to support creators like AQ going forward. This story deserves to have more to it, and it really breaks my heart that this is most likely the ending, or it ended the way that it did. Anyways, enough of my rambling. So, in order to understand the direction that my couple of theories are going, we're going to lay down a timeline, go over any and every bit of info we can. Just like any good analog horror series, dates are pretty important, and just as important as the little details, and Midwest Angelica does seem to kind of jump around. I will do my best to keep it organized. So, here it goes, from the beginning. In June 1985, at the Glendale Research Center, Dr. Lucas Michaels, alongside his colleagues, discover a strange celestial body entering our solar system. November of that same year comes around, and not only do they discover the strange biological properties that this object possesses, but Dr. Michaels and perhaps others start having strange visions and dreams. The following year, this object, now dubbed AZ-001, gains more attention from other organizations, specifically the US government. Two officials, Dr. Churchill and Dr. Spencer, approach Dr. Michaels in regards to his dreams and ask for him to spearhead the HOME organization. Unbeknownst to Dr. Michaels at the time, the two operatives had already become aware of AZ-001's existence a year prior, and this led to the creation of Home Delta and the Babylon Project. AZ-001's trajectory puts landfall somewhere around 1999. 2 years later, in 1989, Dr. Michaels goes missing, either from the effects of the visions or AZ-001's influence. Michael gathers a movie crew to work on a very odd and specific project, which would later become the predictions of the chaos. This movie would not be released until 1991. Dr. Michaels is replaced with a man named Ray O'Connor, and the subsequent discovery of AZ-001's brainwaves takes place 6 years later in 1995. The true starting point of this story begins in January 1999. From the beginning of the month till the end, we witness AZ-001's arrival, the Alpha Chunk, Starfield Ranch, the discovery of the Starkill virus, and the subsequent downfall and infiltration of the first home base. There's a lot of activity here, but some of the more notable events are the assimilation of Starfield Ranch and Home HQ, which gives us insight on just how the Starkill virus works. Towards the end of January and into February, we see two sides of the story: AZ-001's true range of influence and Home Delta's intentions. AZ-001 is shown to, here up to this point, a hyper-intelligent hive mind, and its scope of influence is massive, as was demonstrated by the Long Pine incident. Home Delta, through Churchill and Spencer's studies, have discovered the hive mind network of Starkill, the Akashic Plane, and the stages of evolution within Starkill. The plan is to use this to combat AZ-001 and eradicate it for good. March 1999 rolls around and we see exactly what the Babylon Project is: a biomechanical communication tower meant to combat AZ-001 as well as control the Deathbringers. In one of the first operations committed by Home Delta, Dr. Ezra and Dr. Vega are extracted from the now compromised Home HQ. During administration of a SIN test, Dr. Spencer is attacked, infected, and put in cryostasis. In April, Babylon goes online, with Dr. Spencer as its controller. This leads to catastrophic results as the combination of Starkill and human brain cells implanted into the Tower of Babel, as well as Dr. Spencer being infected already, leads to a massive surge, an exodus event. In the chaos, Dr. Churchill escapes with a man later referred to as Fakebringer, or Aaron. The assimilation of the site and Dr. Spencer leads to the creation of the first apostle of Azazel, Admiral Nero, the body of Azazel. Churchill plots a counterattack while working from behind the scenes, named as GC Pizzo. A few days later, the fake Operation Homebound begins, and AZ-001 splits off another chunk, the beta chunk, containing its consciousness. After the events of Homebound, Churchill sets out to find the location of the beta chunk. He eventually makes his way to Paradise, Missouri, where he finds both the biomass hub and the anima, the soul of Azazel. Churchill succumbs to the Starkill infection. Around the same time, Marcus Lucan, an investigative journalist from that area, sets out to investigate Paradise, where he too is visited by the anima. After acquiring the tapes and Akashic node from Churchill, Lucan retreats to the capital to deliver said items. He never makes it, however, as he had no clue he was already infected. At this point, the Harbinger of Azazel is born. Somehow his car is found outside of the Pentagon containing the tapes and node, and with this information, Home, now designated Home Gamma Majestic, creates Dawnstar, a hyper-intelligent AI linked to the Akashic network. Towards the end of June 1999, Dawnstar is uploaded into the Ark, an orbital defense platform created to obliterate Starkill biomass hubs, and under the leadership of Commander Vindex, July 4th rolls around and a mass offensive dubbed Operation Rapture is launched. Paradise, the Colosseum site, and AZ-001 are obliterated, and in the confrontation with Admiral Nero, the anima appears to unite with the body. Deemed a success, Home continues to observe for any more instances of Starkill, unaware that Dawnstar is in fact the final apostle of Azazel, its mind. July marks the beginning of the end for the United States. Various biomass hubs begin springing up, but their existence is kept a secret by Dawnstar. Meanwhile, 2 months later, in Oklahoma, a man by the name of John Patmos hears word of a heavenly body being observed that many believe to be God. After making contact, John receives a call from the caretaker of none other than Dr. Lucas Michaels, revealed to be the Oracle of Azazel. There's another important reference here that I want to bring up, which is John Patmos. In terms of theology, John of Patmos was believed to be the author of the Book of Revelations, the infamous entry in the Bible depicting visions of Armageddon. It's really only fitting that the warning he receives from the anima and Dr. Michaels is to leave for safe distance before the end comes so that he may survive to bear witness. As this is all going down, Vindex, suspicious of Dawnstar's intentions, is ultimately betrayed before the virus assimilates the Ark and becomes Azazel's crown, the final key to apotheosis. 2 months pass, and the United States is up shit creek. The president, Solomon, nukes himself via Home's Heaven's Grace order, and a countrywide alert is set. Home finally triangulates on the central nexus of the myriad biomass hubs amassing across the United States with the help of Dawnstar, who I'm assuming did it to lure them into the trap. Home is ultimately routed, and with Azazel's final obstacle removed, the final stages of apotheosis begin. It isn't until December, however, that the 7 overtures unite, along with Nero, Dawnstar, and the Anima, and the titanic body of Azazel ascends from the underground, decimating the continental United States. In a strange cosmic twist, once united, Azazel simply leaves, whether it be back to the heavens or wherever it came from. In the aftermath, January 2000, a committee and investigation team, most likely formed by the UN named Easter 1, is sent to figure out what the hell actually happened. To their horror, they find nothing but destruction, few survivors, and the aftermath of what one survivor called America's tornado. Yes, a twister of biblical proportions indeed. But even with a relatively straightforward timeline, there's still so much to try and parse through, so much to try and understand. Nah, I'm just kidding. It was a movie the whole time. See, look at the credits. I mean, they did this from the get-go. They told us and they kept it in our face, and I actually thought there was going to be more to it. But you know what? It's still a great series, great story. Love you guys. Hope you enjoy the video. Stay.
It is said that an angel's soul never truly dies.
Remember what I said earlier? Nothing is as it seems. There is one thing I forgot to include, and after watching and I guess reading, this missing piece turns the entire series on its head. This is Midwest Angelica, Landfall. The real story of what happened in 1999. Without going into it too much, I'll give you the brief rundown, as you should absolutely go read the field manual and watch the video. In Landfall, we see a very similar set of circumstances occurring. However, they're incredibly different at the same time. The trailer that's aired is a supposed sequel, not a wholly different movie, and although there was no official release, it still exists. Even Azazel, or I guess still AZ001, is completely different in appearance and form. Everything down to a few key characters and concepts is different, but three things remain. Dr. Lucas Michaels, AZ001, and the Akashic Plane. So, where exactly does that leave you and I in discovering the truth? Well, to be honest with you, I have no idea. But there are some theories that I have put together, both from my own observations and with, of course, the help of some of my friends. You know who you are. Again, before I get into this too much, I want to emphasize that these are just theories that I have put together. So, the obvious first choice is that it truly is all just a movie. There's quite a few times that the series throws this at you, and there was no AZ001, no Starkill, no Home, and Dr. Michaels was just a slick pen name for the director. It's a pretty straightforward theory, but it's too easy. There's so many things that it doesn't hit on. So while it seems like it's a safe theory, I don't like it at all. This one, however, interests me greatly. AZ001 has existed since before time, as it is all-knowing. It's the Alpha and Omega, it's the beginning and the end, and has continued this cycle for as long. The references of the Great Flood, as I'm sure other extinction-level events on Earth can probably be attributed to AZ001, kind of point that out. But why? To preface this, I know there are things mentioned in Landfall's field guide that kind of mention other angels, and including the one I get to shortly. It also mentions meeting with biblically accurate angels and God, so we do know heaven and hell exist in this universe. There are, however, certain things that make me question Azazel's origins or true purpose. In Landfall, or in the field manual, it mentions three specific angels: Azazel, Azza, and none other than the prodigal son himself, Lucifer. So with that in mind, what if there is no heaven or hell in this series because they are one in the same? There's quite a few clues to give us this notion, and AQ does a good job with trying to mask it. I'll give you a few examples. The use of the name Nero. While being an apostle in the body of Azazel, an angel, so to speak, many during Nero's time considered him to be the Antichrist due to his brutal nature, vanity, and persecution of Christians during the burning of Rome. It's a very interesting name choice for an angelic being. Another one, the reference of Wormwood being the address of Dr. Lucas Michaels. Now, for those of you who are in theological studies or religious, you know Wormwood to be associated with both the Book of Revelations as well as a mark of idolatry, synonymous with Satan or evil. For an angel, it sure uses a lot of imagery contradicting that. Marcus Lucan himself doesn't resemble anything close to an angelic harbinger, more so a hellish entity. There are so many more, but the one that stuck out the most to me was the use of the morning star, which, again, has ties to both God and Satan. Even the name Azazel comes from an angel that was cast out of heaven, much like his brother, Lucifer. Now, I know it's a play on the meaning from the Hermetic text, but I use as above, so below to give this theory to you. Azazel is Lucifer and is the true Almighty. They are one and the same. I know what is said in Landfall's Field Journal might kind of contradict this, but wouldn't it be more likely that the Father of Lies created this narrative to keep the cycle going? There's a reason that things are similar in Landfall, and that's because of another constant, the Akashic Plane. A network of knowledge of everything past, present, future, alternate timelines, and Azazel has access to this because it is, in fact, the creator. I'll tell it like this. The movie was made by Dr. Michaels after receiving visions from Azazel, and all the events follow suit. When the actual no-shit real timeline of events begin, Azazel has changed almost the entirety of the plot. Due to humanity, more specifically the discovery of the film, they are prepared to face that version of Azazel, but Azazel anticipated this. There was no changing the timeline because Azazel is the timeline, and the cycle repeats infinitely. Which, truth be told, brought me to another theory, one slightly more grounded and, honestly, relative to current events. What would cosmic horror be without the cosmic part? My final theory is this. We simply do not understand Azazel, its purpose, or the universe in the heavens above. This plays into the need to rationalize these things either through familiarity or faith, and the reason for this is cosmic horror in its purest form. The knowledge or the truth would simply destroy our perception of reality. Whether through storytelling, via Dr. Michaels' movie, or the fact that Azazel simply uses this as a means to an end is the reason for all the religious imagery. AZ-001 could, for all we know, be an extra-dimensional entity that, in our eyes, fits every description of a god. And the sole reason for our destruction is too crazy to comprehend. Honestly, this is what put Midwest Angelica atop a lofty pedestal in terms of analog horror. It's not very often that you get a high-quality creation that forces you to think, to search, and hunt for the truth. This series, as a whole, was truly something special, and I am so glad that I got around to analyzing it. Again, what's tragic, however, is the fact that not only is it criminally underrated and underviewed on YouTube, but Landfall came to an abrupt end due to the lack of interest. And honestly, that upsets me. I hate seeing something so good close shop due to narrow minds and snobby tastes, and again, the folks at AQ Studios poured their heart and soul into this series, and you can tell because it shows. So, as this video comes to a close, I leave you with one simple question. What would Nero do? Well, I'll tell you what he'd do. He'd probably go show some love and support to this twister of biblical proportions. Go be like Nero, and go like, sub, and watch Midwest Angelica if you haven't already. And if you have, do it again. The cycle must continue. This was an absolutely massive project for me to undertake. And like I said, I know I've been gone for about 2 months, but a lot of that has gone into, or did go into, the writing process, as well as trying to figure out where exactly I was going with the theory. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video a lot, because I did. And this series, again, is so underrated. And how many views that it has on YouTube, It's absolutely criminal for an analog horror series. So, again, thank you guys for all the love and support, but go show some of that love and support and like and sub and comment on AQ Studios projects, because they pour their heart and soul into their projects. We got more coming on the horizon. We got a couple really fun videos coming up. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Special shout out. You know who you are. And thank you guys. Love you all. Stay weird.